Hey everybody, and welcome back for part 8 of this series called Design and Build a Chat Application with Socket.io. This is going to be at least the last scheduled video, so we're going to wrap up the original plan for this application. Maybe I'll follow this up with subsequent videos if people are looking for more. Maybe I'll do that, but for now, this is the last scheduled video, and we're going to, like I said, wrap up the original content that we planned on. So where we are right now is we've got a functional front-end application with login and then the ability for one person to send a message, but it's not being shared across everyone that logs into the application. And then on the back end, we've got our server with the ability to serve our index file to serve public assets so that people have access to the application. And then we're tracking by a log statement when users are connecting to our application from the front end. So the next step here is inside of this callback function or arrow function here for a socket connection. We can grab this socket and we can say on disconnect. And this is just kind of for awareness. We're not really going to take advantage of that. We're just going to do it for printing. But we're going to say user disconnected. So this gives us the ability to see if someone uses. All right, so we should see user connected, and then if I refresh the page, I think we'll see that we actually disconnect and then connect again. So user disconnected, and that's because I left the page that I was on, so it broke that connection, and then after the page reloaded, it went ahead and connected again. So this is kind of a good thing to be able to see. And what we really care about is we want to do a socket.on message. So when a message comes through, then what do we want to do with it? Well, what happens, the way real-time socket connection messages work in this kind of situation is you'll have potentially multiple people making connections or listening to this socket. And so if you receive a message from one of them, you basically want to send that message out to everyone that's listening. So that way, one person, instead of sending a message directly to everyone, it sends it to the server. And then the server will broadcast that message out to everyone that's listening. So just for awareness, we're going to print out message just as a log so we can see it when it comes through. And then we're going to broadcast the message to everyone. So this will be io.emit. So emit is going to be emit a message. And it's going to emit an event with the tag message. So these are tags that we're just coming up with here. Message here, message here. And then we'll emit the message. All right, pretty simple. So I think that is all that we need on the actual back end here. Now we'll move over to the front end again, to our app.js, where we will add a little bit of functionality to this initial connection here. So when we make this connection, we'll be connected to the server, and then we can take socket, what's returned from the connection, and we can say on message, and you'll take in a message, and it'll have a callback function. And let's start by just logging what the message is. All right. So if a message makes it to the server from one client, server will broadcast it out to everyone listening, and it will be handled on the front end from this function. So to do this, we need to find a way to send a message to the server. So what we want to do is in our send message function, sorry if I'm scrolling a little too much here, in our send functionality here, let's just do, before we push to the array, let's do a socket emit message and then pass in the message. So let's save this and let's come back over to our application, log in as James. Let's type a message that says, hey, and it doesn't appear to, let's see if we have the log on the server here. Nope, nothing on the server yet. So let's make sure that we are doing this correctly. All right, so I realized, and I feel like I've been missing some really simple stuff here. Really what we needed to do was refresh our page because we hadn't done that. We were using the live server, so everything was auto reloading. Now, when we're actually pulling stuff from the server, the front end application has to be reloaded manually. So after we refresh, we'll log in as James, we can send a message, and we'll see that message comes across with the correct content. And then if we look at the log in the server, we'll see that it actually logged out that message as well. So that's actually a good sign. And what we'll do now is we will create a separate function. So const send message equals, it's going to take in a message, and it's going to do this emit. So let's copy that and paste it down here. And then we will, instead of displaying the messages up here, and instead of pushing it to the array, what I'm going to do is call the send message function by passing in that message that we just created. So when we trigger our add event listener, we'll create the message, we'll call the function send, which will send it out to the server, reset our value, and actually this chat window scroll top to scroll height is going to move also. So basically all we care about now is that we sent out this message in this event handler function. Now the rest of our functionality is going to come in the callback here. So once we receive a message, now we need to figure out what to do with it. And the first thing we want to do is we are not going to, we're going to take away this assignment of message types right. So we're not going to set a message type until the message comes in. So the message going to the server will not have a type. And then on the front end, when we receive a message, we're going to check the type. And we actually want to check to see if it's not a message types login. So if it's not a login message, then I want to check message author equals the current username. So the person who's logged in, if the author of the message that came in is the same, then we know it's a write type message. So we'll set message type equal to message types dot write. All right. Else we will just copy this, paste it, and call it a left. All right, pretty simple. So now we've got the full message that we're looking for. We've got it complete with all the data that it needs. So now we'll push it on, as we did before, message. There we go. After we push it onto the messages array, we'll call display messages. So this is kind of the same kind of stuff we had in that callback function, just moved a little bit. And then we'll say chat window, scroll top equals chat window scroll height. Let's save this. And let's see just for one user here. Let's refresh it on the front end. Log in as James. Say, hey, James. Hopefully this is a right-hand message, as it should be, with no author being produced. And then let's open up another browser, or open up another page in the same browser. And we'll say this will be Jess. And it says Jess has joined the chat, and hopefully we don't have that connected through here. So let's see if sending a chat here, hey, James, is going to pop up on this one. That does pop up, but Jess logging in did not trigger what it should have. And I think that's because, let's come back here. When we create our login message, so let's say, where is login button? When we create our message, we are setting the type to login, which is right. But it looks like there's something that we're missing. So let me take a second to figure that out. I'll come back and let you guys know. All right, sorry about that. And what I realized is we updated our message event handler, but we didn't update the login button click event handler. And what we want to do, instead of pushing this into our array directly, and instead of calling display messages directly, we want to send, so we'll call the send message function by passing in, let's see, need to pass in the message that we have. So let's do this. So send message, and we'll pass it with that object, and then we will not call display messages. We'll let that be handled by the event handler for when a message is actually received. So let's see if this looks right. User connected, a user connected. Let's refresh this one and say, hey, James is logged in. Let's refresh this one. and say Jess is logged in, and now Jess should show up on James's, and James can say, hey, Jess, and she will receive it appropriately, and then she will say, hey, James, and he will receive it appropriately as well. So that is almost all of the functionality. The one thing I want to do is just clean up this date just a tad, and it's a little tricky, and I guess I can show you guys. Well, let's just go ahead and do it. So let's come back over to our project here. Let's come to, where are we doing dates? Here in the send button. So when we send a message, we create the date. And what I want to start with is I'm just going to create a date variable here and just put it to new date. And then I can get different properties of this date by calling functions on that date. And actually, it might be better. Can I zoom in on this thing? Yeah, it'll let me. How much will it let me zoom in? Hopefully you guys can see this and it'll be all right. So let's say if I do a const d equals new date, I've got access to a lot of functions here. One is get month. One of the interesting things here is that get month only returns a single digit. So if you want it to be 2 digits, you have to do something fancy. If you want the day, it's not get day, but get date. So it'll be, so this is March 28th, or excuse me, April 28th is the day. And then the last one is d.get full year to get 4 digits. Otherwise, I think it'll just give you 2. So if I want to display a date of, let's say, 03/28/2018, I can get these 3 different things, and I'll have to do something a little bit fancy to pad this with a 0. So let's go ahead and start working on that. So we'll do the const day equals date dot get date. All right, that's pretty straightforward. Const year equals date dot get full year. Pretty straightforward. And then the last one, the const month, we would typically start with get month, which is fine. That works fine. But if we want to pad it with a 0, we can add the string 0 before it. All right, so this will be 0 and then whatever month returns. So if it was 3, and actually the reason I was confused with dates earlier, 3, this is a 0-based index for months. But oddly enough, the day is not 0-based index, so it's kind of tricky there. But anyway, we can pad this with a 0, so this string will be 0 and then 3. And actually, what we should do, let's go ahead and make this right. So let's add a 1 to that. So we'll say, let's get the month. Let's add 1 to it, so we'll have 4. And then let's add a 0 before it. But this won't work if we're in a month like October, which is 10, so it already has 2 digits. So to compensate for that, we can do a slice with 0 and 2. And what this means is if it's 2 digits long, slice will take all of those digits. If it's 3 digits long, it will only take the, and actually I'm still saying that a little bit wrong. Let me try this one more time. This will actually be a slice with a -2. And what this is going to do is it's basically going to take, let's say we have 3 digits, 0, 1, 2. This is going to say start from the back and count back 2 digits and just take those 2 digits. So if it's already 12 and we padded it with a 0, it'll take 12. And if it's 0, 3, so, or 0, 4 in this case, where we padded the 0 here, it's going to say start at the back and count back 2. So that's going to give us the appropriate date that we're looking for, or the appropriate month that we're looking for. And then the last thing we can do here is just we'll create the date string. And what we're going to do is put those things together using ES6, backticks, and string interpolation. So we'll start off with the month, all right? And then we'll pass in the day, and then we will pass in the year. All right, and then the date string here is what we want to actually include in the message. Let's save this. Let's see if we did that right. That's a tricky one to do. Let's come over. Let's open this up. Say James, and then say, hey, and this should be 4/28/2018, and that's actually correct, which is exactly what we're looking for, which is very cool. So I think this is going to wrap up the functionality for our application. And I just want to do a little bit, just a couple minute recap of what we did, just so you guys have a refresher of what it was. We started off with just working on our design. So we talked about basic design concepts, a little bit of typography, a little bit of color, a little bit of layout, talked a little bit about white space. Again, this was super high level. I just want to kind of get into thinking about design a little bit more, so maybe it helps you guys to think about it a little as well. And then we got into just kind of stubbing out our content. We did the HTML, then we did some CSS helper classes, utility classes, and then text classes and stuff like that. Then we took that and took 2 videos to actually build out the design, so to make everything look like what our design looked like, so to finish out the CSS and HTML. Then we worked in our JavaScript to dynamically generate HTML strings for each of these messages as they come through. Use arrow functions and map and join to do that, which is pretty cool. And the second JavaScript part, we added the functionality to actually log in, to send a message, or to add a message to an array, and to be able to toggle back and forth between the login and the chat windows. And then in the following video, we created our Node server. We added the ability for the front end to register through Socket.io with the back end and log those out. And then in this last video, we went ahead and connected everything together to be able to send our messages all the way through to the server and then broadcast them out to all the users, for all the users to be able to receive them, to add it to this array over here, to display it on the screen appropriately. And then we finally did some conversions on our date to make them look a little prettier. So that's a lot of stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed what we did. I hope you learned a lot. I hope some of this was new for you. Some of this probably wasn't, but maybe it was a good refresher. But I want to thank you guys for sticking around and going through this series with me. This is kind of a cool one. It's a simple one, but I think it's got some good concepts in there for you guys, and some good things for me to just kind of refresh as I went through as well. So all in all, I enjoyed it. I enjoy spending time with you. I hope you guys did too as well. And if you guys have any feedback, comments, suggestions, thoughts, things you want to see in the future, always feel free to leave me a comment or send me a message and just let me know what you're thinking, and I'll be happy to take a look at that. But until then, this is going to wrap up the Design and Build a Chat Application with Socket.io mini series, and I will see you guys in whatever comes next. Thanks for watching.